Now the next thing we will be looking at is what we call methods. So methods, as I have already mentioned, are basically functions, the functions we know already. But then when a function is linked to a class, then it becomes a method. So how then do we use methods in classes? Now I would want to use one within the confines of the class and another one outside of the class, and then we'll link everything up together. So in the first case, I would come over here and then define a function in here. And then the function is going to return a double. So this is the basic syntax for a function. The data type over here is what the function would be returning. Over here, our function is going to, so let me just tell us what our function will be doing. Our function is going to compute the cost, or yeah, the cost of our shipment based on the price and the weight. So let's assume that the shipping company charges a lot if your product weighs a lot, and then based on the price, then you will be required to pay taxes as well on that particular one. So we would want a cost of so let's define a function for that. So a function, a double, is going to return a double, and this is going to be the amount. Let's name it amount, right? And then if we are defining this particular function within this class, we would not be passing parameters. But to explain concepts, let me just include the parameters. So we would be taking, let's say, a double weight and then a double price. So this is the normal syntax for functions, right? Then after that, what do we want to do after we get our weight and after we get our price? What we want to do is simply to return. You can create a variable, store it in there and return that variable, but we will just be doing it explicitly. So we will return, what I mean is, let me just do it. So let's say cost, double cost is equal to, so let's say we want to multiply the price by 1.5, price times 1.5. And then we add it to the weight times 5. Yeah, so this shipping company charges a lot if your product is very heavy. So then after that, we want to return the cost. So what I meant earlier was we could have just substituted this whole, let me just copy it and then paste it over here. So we could have simply returned this without putting it in a variable and all of those long procedures. But let's just do it this way. So what have we done over here? This is a function called amount, and it takes in two parameters, weight and price. And after that, it then computes the cost by using these parameters. We could have said this parameter is A and this parameter is B. I think I should use AB so that you guys, yeah, so AB, then we get in here and say A times this plus B times that. But over here, we are simply saying price and weight. Now, the cool thing about classes is that if you define a function within a class, then whatever attributes that are here are directly accessible to the function or to the method. So we do not have to include any of these over here because we could just use these, we could just call them directly because they are in the same container. So this function can access it has access to all of these attributes, so we can just use them directly without passing them as attributes over here. So this works fine. So this is how to define a function called a method within a class. So in our case, it just computes the cost. Now, how do we make use of this method that we just created? So now what we have over here is an object called shipment1, and shipment1.name is a computer, shipment1.price is 89, shipment1.weight is 1500. And when we come over here, shipment weight is 1500, shipment price is 89. And when we come over here, this directly accesses, it has access to those parameters. So it would have 89 times 1.5 plus 1500 times 5, and it's going to return the cost. Now, I don't think we want to do this. Let's just output a sentence. So we want to see out anytime this particular method is called, we want to have a print statement. So what we want to do is to see out your product cost, your product cost, this particular amount. So we want to just say cost, right? And then we are returning cost. Okay. So your product cost that, and we can say that dollars. So let's have that over there. Great, with a full stop over there. Now, how do we make use of this particular function? So after we've assigned our attributes to this particular object that we created, what we want to do over here, so let me just go ahead and comment out all of these because we will not be using them over here. So right, so over here as well. Great. Then what we want to have over here is we just want to, so we can just call it the way we call the other attribute. So we can have shipment one dot, and now you can see amount over here. And remember, you should include the parenthesis, right? So when we call shipment one dot amount, it calls this particular function and it prints out this statement over here because we are calling it. So we'll go ahead and run this and see the output. And now we have your product cost $67633.5. Right. So this is the output that we want. We have successfully computed the cost for shipment one. You can go ahead and create a second object and assign parameters to it, and you follow the same procedure and you would be getting your cost as well. So this is how to define a function within a class, which is called technically a method. Now what I want to do next is to define a function outside of a class and then link it to the class. So I would follow the same procedure for defining a function. So we would have a double over here, and we want to call this get attributes. So what this function is going to do basically is to get the attributes of the object that we created, and is going to assign them to price and all of that. So let me do it and you kind of see what I mean. So our first parameter is going to be double A, and then the second one is going to be double B. It doesn't really matter the names you give over here. These are local variables. Right, so the next thing we want to do is, after we take in a double A and B, what we want to do is we want to set this price, the price to be equal to A, and then weight to be equal to B. And that's it. And since we have a function returning a double, we should have a return statement over here, because the double over here tells us the data type that this particular function will be returning. So if this was to return, if this were to return, let's say an integer, then we would want an int over here. But in this case, we're returning a double. So we'd have return price, and so let's say price and weight. Right, and we are done. So now we have a function which takes two parameters. You have to input the price over here and the weight over here. I think I should put in P so that we would kind of know what is about. Now I could have put price in here explicitly because it really doesn't matter, but it would kind of be conflicting with the other variables. We would not know what we are working with, so I would just leave it double P and double W. Right, so now we have this, and then what we want to do next is to link up, because if we don't link up, then we would have to use an int over here to show that this is a different variable. But this is not a different variable. This price over here is what we have already over here. So in order to be able to use them over here, we have to link this particular function to the class. So how then do we do it? To link it up, all we have to do is to come over here and then type out the name of the class that we want to link it to. So if we had several classes, then we would want to use the particular one that we want to link to. In this case, our class is called product, and then we want to use these two colons to link up this function called get attributes, and this then becomes a method of the class product. Great. In that case, we then have access to price, and we don't have to redefine them again. Let's say that I did not do this and I run this program. Let's see what would happen. So Shift B is my shortcut for running this, and we have over here, it says that price was not declared in this scope. So as you can see, price was not declared in this scope because this particular function right now has no relationship with the class asset now, so we have to get that relationship. So let me just go ahead and do that. So product with two semicolons, with two colons, sorry. So now we've linked it up. Now the next thing we want to do to completely link everything is to come over here and then under public, because this function is going to be public, so under public we want to put it over here, that double, and then the name of our function is get attribute. So this then becomes a method, and then what we want to put input over here is the data type of the parameters that we are using, not the parameters themselves, just the data type. So we have double A and double B, so we'll just be writing double, then after that we'll end it with a semicolon, and our link is complete now. Now when we run this, let's run this, I don't want to talk a lot. We run this and we have this error over here. It says that A was not declared in this scope. So what we have over here is double P and double W. So we have to use P here and then W. Probably that was what the first error was about. But you guys, you can go ahead and try it and see that is going to throw an error. So we run this and we have this error over here as well. We clear it and then we run it again. And now we have the same output as before. So what we just did is we created a function and linked it to a class, making it a method. But as of now, we are not using it. So how then do we use it? So after we've done that setup, we come down and declare our object, create our object called shipment1. Then after that, what we want to do is, what's the function doing? It gets parameters. Then after that, we can, let me just come down this way. I think I should clear this one. So we have shipment product 1, and we've created an object called shipment1. Now we can assign parameters to it by using shipment1 dot, and then we have get attributes over here. So we call it and then pass in the attributes. So it's 89 for the price, and then because we can see over here double P and double W, so 89 for the price and then 1500 for the weight. We end it with a semicolon. Now when we pass in these two parameters, it gets this particular method picks it up and then assigns it to price and weight. So price then becomes 89 and weight then becomes 1500, because that's our P and our W respectively. Then after these get assigned over here, these particular attributes are then accessible to all the methods over here. So this particular method, which computes the cost of our product, equally has access to it. So we then go ahead and compute the cost and print it out. So that's the order of execution. So I'd go ahead and then copy this particular line of code. In fact, I'll cut it and then I'll paste it over here and go ahead and comment out all of this. So I'll just cut this and paste it here so it gets commented out. Right, so we've created an object, assigned attributes, and we are printing the cost. We run this and hopefully we should not get any error. Great. Now we have your product cost this dollars, so the same output, but just that we have used less line of code, and which is more concise. But then we can make this more concise. The next thing we will be talking about is, so right now we've looked at a function over here and we've linked it up. Now in this case, our function just gets the attributes and assigns them. In later videos, we will be defining real functions that would be computing or doing certain work. But in this case, we're just getting the attributes and reassigning them. Right, so this is just an introduction to them. We'll be doing more of them in future videos. Now the next thing we would want to look at is what we call constructors. And now the basic intuition behind constructors is, as the name implies, a constructor. So a constructor is basically a function, but then this function gets automatically called at the time of object creation. So for example, during the time of a baby in the womb, the baby gets eyes, the baby gets legs, the baby gets basically all the organs she would need for the world. That was during the time of development in the womb. Then when the baby gets to the world, as to whether the baby would be performing the function of a doctor, the function of a teacher, the function of a programmer, will be determined while the baby is in the world, not at the point of construction. But at the point of construction, the baby has to have eyes, she has to have all the organs necessary. So that's the intuition behind constructors. When we are using constructors, we have to assign attributes of the object during the object creation. Then after we assign those attributes, as to whether those attributes would be used to compute cost, as to whether those attributes would be used to do whatever that we want to do within the program, would then be determined after the creation. I think it's enough of the talk and we have to get to work. So right now we want to create a constructor. Now for a constructor, you should note that we have said that it's basically a function, right? A constructor is basically a function without no return value. So we would be converting this double get attributes to a constructor. Now this is the syntax. First we start over here. A constructor is a function and it has to have the same name as the class. So over here we have get attributes. So we would delete the get attributes and call it product. So a constructor has to have the name of the class it is going to be linked to. And then we would not have any return value, so we clear this. No double, nothing. Not even void. And we go ahead and clear this out as well. In this case, we are just taking in a value and we are passing those values to price and weight. This is just an introduction. But the takeaway is that constructors do not have return values, not void, not double, nothing, just plain. Then when we get in here, we want to rename this to product as well because it has to have the name of the class. And we go ahead and clear this double as well because we are not returning anything. Great. So now we have our constructor set. Take note, no return value. It has to have the same name as the class. Great. Now, after we have set up our constructor, what we want to do is we then want to create an object. And remember, constructors are used at the point of object creation. So we come over here and give the object the attributes that we want the object to have at the point of creation. So we want to pass in 8, 9, and because there's going to be double P and double W. So 8, 9, and 1500. Right. After we pass in that, it gets inputted over here because this is 8, 9, this 8, 9, and then this is 1500. Then we set the price to 8, 9, and then the weight to 1500. So this gets assigned over here, and then those particular attributes become accessible to all the methods and any other thing that are here. So over here, double amount will have access to those values as well. Great. Then after doing that, what we just want to do is to So we are no longer using this, so I go ahead and clear it out. And then what we just have is our object, and we have certain attributes assigned during the point of construction. Then after that, we have computed the cost using those values, and we will be printing it. So basically this is our line of code, just 2 lines. We'll run this and we should be getting the same output as before. So your product cost $7,633.5. Great. So this is what we call a constructor. You can go ahead and create several constructors if you want. We will be doing more of those in future videos, but this is just a quick introduction.